What is the Prime Minister's promise now? To quadruple the carbon tax on the farmers that feed our people. Now let's talk about the impact this is having. Just today, we have a new report from Canada's food professor. Professor Charlebois of Dalhousie University produced a report indicating that next year Canadians will spend $701 more to feed their families. Now this is on top of the 20% food price inflation we've had just in the last couple of years. Next year, the average family of four will need to spend $16,297 to feed their children and themselves. Projections from this report indicate that for the coming year, food inflation will be between 2.5 and 4.5% on top of the pre-existing food price increases. Now, Liberals will say, oh, well, inflation is coming down. Prices are going up. The 20% increase in the cost of food is not going away. The 2 to 4% increase that will come this year will be compounded on top of the previous increases. The Prime Minister said, well, he might be quadrupling the carbon tax on farmers and truckers who bring us our food, but don't worry, he's having meetings with CEOs of grocery chains. Well, clearly it hasn't worked because food prices continue to go up again after the dozens of promises that he would make food more affordable. I'm going to read from this report again. In 2024, it is probable that Canadians will continue to experience the strain of food inflation compounded by increasing costs of housing, energy, and various other expenditures. Canadians are facing stricter budgets as they contend with higher costs of living as rents continue to increase, interest rates have risen, and household debt is up. Food and beverage retail data show that between 2022 and 2023, Canadians reduced the amount they spent on food and beverage retail by 3.26%. They're eating less. They're paying more to eat less. So they're having to cut back on their nutritional budgets. They're buying less nutritional food. They're buying smaller portions where the nutrition is literally stripped out of it and replaced with manufactured oils and artificial sweeteners and flavors so that they can trick their palate into thinking that they're nourishing their bodies. A recent report by TransUnion, I'm now quoting from the report from the Agri-Food Analytics group at Dalhousie. A recent report by TransUnion found that the average Canadian has a credit card debt of $4,000 and a 4.2% increase in household debt compared to last year. The problem is getting worse. Madam Speaker, that increase in household debt is on top of the fact that Canada already has the highest household debt in the G7 by a country mile. No one else is even close. We now have approximately $1.80 in debt for every dollar in household income. And all of that debt is rolling over into higher interest rates, which this Prime Minister's deficits have caused. I quote the report further. Food prices are not the only increase in expenses that Canadians are facing, as other commodities are still feeling the effects of inflation. And household expenses like rent and utilities are also increasing year over year. The last 2 months have been the fastest months of increase in the rent. And the Prime Minister's plan, after having caused all this misery throughout 8 years, and I will be sharing my time with the member for Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes, Brock, who comes from a farming community. The Prime Minister proposes to quadruple the carbon tax on the farmers who make the food and the truckers who ship the food. Conservatives are going to fight tooth and nail to stop this Prime Minister from getting on his surfboard and leaving this place until he agrees to pass our common sense proposal to axe the tax on farmers, First Nations, and families heating their homes. Can the Prime Minister put his ego and his ideological obsessions aside so that Canadians can feed themselves this Christmas? It's common sense of the common people united for our common home.